So, in honor of today's video and what I'll be talking about, I'm sporting my Baby Yoda shirt and these really cute mandolin earrings that my best friend Michael got me for Christmas. Just to show you how serious I am about this video. I'm Hannah, and this is a video I'm making for my sophomore inquiry class, Popular Culture. It's our final for the term, winter term, and the premise of the final was so at the very beginning of the class, we did an assignment that basically was just like, think of 10 things that relate to your identity, and for your final, maybe pick one and do something about it and why it's important to you and all of that stuff. So for one of my identities, I chose Star Wars, obviously. This franchise has had a really huge impact on my life growing up. My dad introduced me to all of the movies when I, was able to talk and walk and understand what was going on a TV screen. I love Star Wars, a lot. And so for this final, I'm not going to be talking about how much I like the franchise as much as I would. That video would just be way too long. Instead, when I proposed my final to my professor, I was like, I love Star Wars, but with all franchises and with all big things like this, there's some problematic elements in the movies. And one of them that stands out the most is racism in the Star Wars franchise. And a lot of it actually is very minor, so a lot of people who watch the movies or shows don't even recognize it at first until it gets explained to you, which is exactly what happened to me. I watched the films and didn't really notice anything wrong until social media and until a lot of people pointed out the messed up, very micro things that were happening, and even though they were micro, they still happened, I'm not going to be talking about all of the 9 films that have come out. I'm only going to be really talking about the last three that came out, The Force Awakens, Last Jedi, and The Rise of Skywalker. I'm going to be going in order, so Force Awakens, Last Jedi, Rise of Skywalker. So, problem with The Force Awakens. So, promotion for this film started around the end of 2014. We saw the first teaser trailer of it. It was only about a minute long, and the first person that you actually see in the trailer is Finn, who is played by the amazing John Boyega. I think that's how you pronounce his name. I'm sorry if I mispronounce it. Who is a black man from the United Kingdom. And he plays a stormtrooper turned resistance fighter. By the way, just from that first minute teaser trailer, the internet blew up and was just filled with racist comments towards Joan, why is there a black man in a stormtrooper outfit? Why is he in this? Blah 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 blah. And it got so bad to the point where the actor himself had to come out and be like, hey, I'm here, get used to it, I'm in the films, nothing I can do about it. If you have a problem with me, don't watch the video, don't watch the movie. It's as simple as that. So it's oh dear God, dad, you already know that it's just gonna be a roller coaster. And again, Disney didn't really do anything, didn't come out and show any support for him, whatever. Another thing is, when 2015 hit, there were billboards everywhere, posters, photos released on the internet, that's what movies do. That's what the Avengers did. They are promoting their movie a lot so that everybody can see it. And so a lot of the promotional photos had Finn holding the lightsaber, Luke's lightsaber obviously, and he's posing with it. And then when the official trailer came out, you see him using said lightsaber to fight, stormtroopers. You see him fight Kylo Ren with it for a brief moment in the film. And so you as the audience member are thinking, oh wow, like yeah, we're getting a main character who's of color, who's got like the lightsaber, and he's gonna be a badass, and you're excited for it. And then the movie comes, and there's like 2 fight scenes with the lightsaber, but you're like, okay, great. And then, so the first film didn't really have, it wasn't terrible with Finn's character, because you think that it's going to evolve more in the next 2 films, and then you get the Last Jedi, which is the second film of the franchise, and then nothing. You don't really hear any of his backstory. You don't see him use the lightsaber. You don't see him, you know, struggling with like the Force. It's just kind of brushed aside. You don't get any more context than that. And then the exact same thing happened in Rise of Skywalker. He was kind of brushed aside. You don't see him use the lightsaber. You hear him mention the Force like once, and that's it. Disney introduced, or Star Wars, Lucasfilms, introduced a black man in the first film, made it seem like he was going to be important, and then for the next 2 films, completely just brushed him under the carpet. And nobody saw a problem with that. And I watched all of the films in the theater with my dad and my sister. That was like our tradition. And I'm watching it, and it kind of just like went over my head out and saw all of like the issues that those films had. And I was like, oh, yeah, that is really problematic. It is. And then it, you know, the pieces started like coming together in my head. And I was like, that's really messed up. That's so messed up. And then last summer when George Floyd was murdered, and the Black Lives Matter movement, you know, was like very, very prominent in the summer. John himself actually like spoke at a rally in England, I believe. And he was like basically saying like I feel your guys' pain, like, you know, speaking out on all of this. I'm probably not even gonna have a career anymore, but screw it, like, I matter, my life matters, blah blah blah. And it's just like, it was really painful to watch. I cried a little bit when watching. It was a very small speech. It wasn't like, you know, anything big, but it was just like, how sad is it that he was like scared to speak up during the Star Wars era that he was in, because he was worried that he was going to lose his job for speaking out against racial inequality and crap like this. Like, it just broke my heart. It was just so unacceptable what they did to him and what they did to his character. Like, you can't do that! And then, another thing that a lot of people don't talk about ever, when The Force Awakens, like, official, like, poster came out, in the US, Finn's character is, like, bigger, like, on the poster, obviously, and he's, like, posing with a lightsaber, and he's, like, next to Daisy Ridley, who plays Finn, the main character in the films. And then, when the trailer got released in China, for some reason, his character was photoshopped to be smaller. I don't really think I need to go into more of an explanation as to why that's messed up. Do with that what you will. Jesus, and again, Disney or Lucasfilms didn't even say anything about it. Ugh. Okay, so I'm done talking about Finn. Now I'm going to talk about the other character, Poe Dameron, who is part of like the trio. So you've got Finn, Rey, and Poe. So those are like 3 characters like of this trilogy. So Poe Dameron is played by Oscar Isaac, who's from Guatemala, I believe. I think he also has some Cuban in him, but he's a Latino man. And in the first film, you don't really see that much of him. You just know that he's part of the resistance, which is the good people, obviously. Like, they're fighting against, like, the bad guys. You don't really get that much backstory on him. He's kind of just there. You, like, know in the first film, though, that he's going to be a big deal because of, like, the way, like, I guess he's, like, introduced, if that makes sense. But he becomes more of a prominent figure in the second and the third film. And the first two films were fine. You know, they did a good job of, like, introducing him and, like, all of that stuff. Like, didn't really think much of it. And then in the third film, I'm trying not to discuss the plots of the movies, but I will have to, like, a little bit for what I'm about to say. So basically in the third film, Rey, Poe, Finn, and C-3PO have to go to a planet, or like a place that Poe used to work at before he became a resistance fighter, because they have to access something in C-3PO's head, like a Sith language, in order to find out, like, Kylo Ren's plan. And so he has to, like, hit up, like, an old coworker, and then you meet the coworker, and she's basically just, like, she gives you a really big backstory hint about Poe, and I'm so mad that they did this. Why did they do this? She basically tells the trio, like, oh, you didn't know that your friend used to be a spice runner before he paired up with you guys? If you don't already know, spice runner in Star Wars language basically is another word saying, like, drug smuggler. Why was that written into the script? Who approved that? Why did you make a Latino man in the Star Wars film a spice runner? Why was, like, it's such a big stereotype that Latino people are always, like, associated with, like, drugs. Like, why? Like, can you tell I'm getting, like, riled up about this? It, like, made me so angry. And again, when I was watching it in the theaters, I was like, okay. And then a few months later, when I was reading about it and realized, like, what a crappy thing that was, I was like, oh no, why did you just, like, completely trashed his character and his backstory, and, like, yeah, so that was just, like, a big no-no. First, like, you do him the disservice of the first film by not really, like, showing us more of him, and then in the second film, he's like, okay, and then for the first part of the third film, you know, I don't know, it just wasn't okay, in my opinion. Like, you couldn't have made him anything else, a dentist, before he became a resistance fighter. Why does it have to involve drugs? Now, Oscar Isaac doesn't have social media, so I haven't heard his response to anything. I'm sure he's just as upset as I am and as the millions of people are when they saw it, but I'm not going to put words in his mouth, but I'm going to assume that he's probably very disappointed as to what they did with his character. It was just super, just, like, not okay. Okay, now on to, you know, another character who isn't, like, a main character. She's kind of a side character, but I thought I would, like, mention her just because of the treatment she got. So in The Last Jedi, the second film, you're introduced to a girl named Rose, who is a mechanic with the Resistance, and she and Finn meet and they become friends. And if you don't know, she's played by Kelly Marie Tran, who is she's Vietnamese. And after her introduction in this film came to light, oh my god, the harassment and the abuse she suffered from fans was so bad that she ended up having to, like, delete her Twitter and, like, delete all of her social media accounts because the amount of, like, verbal abuse she was getting was just, like, through the roof. And again, Lucasfilms and Disney didn't do anything about it. They just let it happen. Whatever. But, like, they knew. Like, they're not stupid. Like, they knew what was happening. They just chose to ignore it. So she becomes friends with Finn, and, like, her and him have, like, their own separate journey in the film. And her sister ends up having to, like, sacrifice herself in the beginning of, like, the film. Like, she dies from an explosion. Also, that also is just terrible and controversial in its own way, because it's like, this sister, who is also of Asian descent, is introduced in the film for literally like less than a minute, and then she dies. It's like, okay, don't understand what the point of that was, but alright, go off. And here's how Disney knew that Kelly Marie Tran was getting harassed, because in the third film, Rise of Skywalker, her total screen time for that entire 2-hour movie was less than 2 minutes. The writers and director basically were just like, this person is getting a lot of abuse, and rather than just like saying F you to all of them by making her a main character again, we're just gonna push her to the side. That way that we don't have to like deal with it, you know? Like, we'll have her in the film and she'll be invited to like the premieres and stuff, but we don't have to deal with that again. It's like, deal with what? You didn't have to deal with any of it. She did. She was the one getting harassed, and in response to it, you took the bully's side and did nothing with her. Like, it was... And here's the thing. I'm not saying that you have to like every single character in Star Wars. That's fine. You're allowed to dislike characters. But the problem that I have, and that with other people have, is taking your anger out on the actual actor or actress who is portraying said person. They're not real. It's fictional. It's a fictional world, and you're getting wild up and worked up for no reason. The fandom and fans are just like insane. They take everything way too seriously. And again, I love Star Wars, obviously. Like, those movies mean a whole awful lot to me. But it's important to address the controversial and messed up, screwed up things that they've done. Because I feel, in my opinion, that shows that you're a true fan when you're not ignoring the terrible, awful things that go on, like, behind the scenes. Because if I was a Star Wars fan and I just completely ignored, you know, what was happening, then you're part of the problem, you know? And I don't want to be that. I don't want to be part of the problem. You know, I want to speak out, and I want people to know about what was happening. There's a lot more that I can say, but I kind of only wanted to focus on those 3 films because going through all 9 films would take forever. Don't even get me started on Jar Jar Binks and that portrayal. Like, I'm a white woman, and I'm not trying to like stomp over the voices of like people of color. Absolutely not. I just wanted to make this video because I've learned so much of like the crappy things that has gone on, and it was really upsetting, and it hurt my heart and my feelings a lot, and that's why I really wanted to do my final on this, because, you know, the franchise is very important to me, but speaking out against the things that make me uncomfortable and that have made other people uncomfortable is more important. So that's my rant for today. Anyway, I hope this was a good video, and I hope it made sense. This is also like my 5th time trying to film this video. We're still in quarantine, so, you know, everyone's working and having school from home, and people keep walking in through the door, so I had to keep like stopping. But anyway, I hope you like it. Bye. Plant for you. For you. No. Oh. At least I caught it.